Hi everyone, Christine here. Okay, this is the book that I have recently written and it is called For the Love of Truth. Actually, the full title is Time for the Church to Get Back on Track and Live for the Love of Truth. Over January, the next few weeks, I'm going to be reading a few snippets from the book. Hopefully, to whet your appetite to join me in a little teaching series that I'm going to do in February, all from this book. So there are 10 chapters altogether in the book. So let me give you the names of the chapters and just see if, oh gosh, hold on, sorry. I keep flicking back to this, hold on. Here we are, got it. Chapter 1, I just want to be somebody. In that chapter, I begin with some memoir from my childhood, and then I go into some teaching. Chapter 2, The God Who Feels. In this chapter, which is where I'm going to be reading from today, I just explore, really, how does God feel? I ask the question, how does God feel? Something we often don't think about, really. I think sometimes the Christian life is about how I feel. Lord, how do I feel? And this is a very profound question, actually. How does God feel? And so that's chapter 2. Chapter 3, Land Ahoy. Again, this starts with some memoir. What I've tried to do in this book is to combine memoir with teaching so that there's sort of ebb and flow in it. It's not just one sort of flat line of teaching. It's sort of up and down with memoir and teaching. So Land Ahoy, yeah. So I start with some memoir and then again I go to some teaching. Chapter 4, This Great Thing. And of course this great thing is the church that Jesus is building. Chapter 5, All the Difference. And in there I explore how the church that Jesus is building is meant to be in the earth all the difference. Chapter 6, The Sacred Trust. Truth is the sacred trust of the church, and so I explore that in that chapter. Chapter 7, Why the Bible. Go into some reasons as to why we put such store on the words contained in the Bible. Chapter 8, True North. Chapter 9, The Subtleties of the Old Paths. Chapter 10, Even When You Fall. This is the final chapter. And chapter 10 was probably the hardest chapter I've ever had to write because I share about my own fall from grace, from faith, and how the Lord restored me. And so, even though it was hard to write, hopefully that last chapter brings into view the perfect love and grace of God. And it shows how holding on to my salvation actually is about the Lord holding on to me. Because if I could lose my salvation, as one preacher man said, I would have lost it the second after I received it. And so in that chapter, I explore how I fell and how the Lord restored me. And so there is quite a lot in the book. As you can see, I'll just show you in each chapter. So there's, hold on, sorry. There's the chapter headings, as you can see in bold print. And under each chapter heading, there are subtitles. Let me just pick one out. Okay. Chapter 4, This Great Thing. I'll just read you some of the subtitles under there. It's a phenomenon. That's the church. Has anything been done like this great thing, the church? Who is the who? The warfare. You have come. It is all very individual. The dead made alive. Death is not the end. The God of the living. There's more. And my happy. And so there's a lot that I can bring to you in this teaching course from the book For the Love of Truth. So that will be February. And I invite you to join me. I'll let you know, I'll give you a reminder before then. So I'm just going to read a little bit from chapter 2, The God Who Feels. There's been some wonderful feedback, actually, especially about this chapter, The God Who Feels. Excuse me. Okay. I begin with a quote from Winston Churchill. And he said this: "Truth is the most valuable thing in the world. So valuable, it is surrounded by a bodyguard of lies." How true is that? Okay. Ready? Right from the get-go, the devil, understanding the eternal weightiness of truth, had his bodyguard of lies, like a muscle army, well trained, well rehearsed, and on red alert, waiting for the moment of opportunity when he could disenfranchise it. His opportunity came when the First Lady of Eden was persuaded that his lies weren't lies at all, but revelations about her potential for greatness. And so we see her in a moment of beguiled madness, eating the forbidden fruit, exchanging the truth of God for a lie. How does God feel? Very interestingly, nothing notable is written, at least in the book of Genesis, about God's heart response to what happened that day in the garden. We're not told how, in his deepest love and compassion, he actually felt about what the man and woman did, or how he felt about seeing them leave the garden in their disinherited state. Even when Adam physically died at the ripe old age of 930, there's nothing said of how God felt about that moment, although we do get a glimpse into his heart later in the word when we read, "The Lord cares deeply when his loved ones die," and you'll find that in Psalm 116 and verse 15. So we know God feels the mortality of his people profoundly. That being said, I can only imagine that with this first man, he must have felt the kind of heart pain that is way beyond the reach of any human heart ever to comprehend. Adam was a prototype for all humanity, remember, notwithstanding how, when God looked into his eyes, he saw not just Adam, but all of humanity that was seeded in him. This one, though, was the first one to leave the eternities, to leave the womb of God's heart, where he had been carried with the rest of his beloved family, eternally known, eternally loved, and deeply cherished. Here in the newly created dimension of time and space, he was the first one to be made in God's image and likeness, the first spirit to inhabit a human body. He was the first one to receive the breath of life, the first one to look into God's face. He was the first one to call him Abba, Father. He was the first one to walk and talk with God in the cool of the day. The first one to laugh with him, sing with him, and yes, even dance with him. Adam was the first human being to know God, to enjoy God, and to be enjoyed by God. Try, if you will, then, to imagine the deep joy it must have been for the Lord to reveal himself to the young Adam and, over time, impart his ancient wisdom, knowledge, and understanding to him. Then go a little deeper in your holy imagination and picture the times when this papa-doting son would be snuggled tight under his sun-doting papa's big eagle wings, listening wide-eyed to the best bedtime story ever, the story of creation. Oh, the excitement of the little eaglet as he listened with burning heart to the story of how the heavens with their fiery constellations and the earth with its flamboyant population of land animals, oceanic mammals, flying creatures, flowers, trees, rivers were brought into being. No doubt with the excitable cries of, "Again, Papa, tell me again." What kind of delight to the Father's heart do you think this would have been? as he bonded with his first created son, watching him hang on to every riveting word that fell out of his, the greatest ever storytelling mouth. I want you to imagine what love they must have shared, what intimacy they must have known, and what friendship they must have cultivated. And when you have done that, stop for a moment, take a deep breath, and dare to consider the excruciating tear it must have been to both God and Adam when, because of his desertion of the truth, he was separated from his father's side. The separation toppled Adam's world, there's no doubt about that, having a cataclysmic impact on the lives of the generations that were to follow. But not even the cumulative suffering and brokenness endured by humanity as a result of that cataclysm could compare to the depths of pain God surely felt in that moment of detachment. The son torn from his hip was the son he had always known and always loved, the son he had invested the whole of himself into. What human heart then could possibly fathom such depths? And what finite being could possibly conceive of such pain? There is none except God himself. But God didn't say it. Not then, anyway. How God feels today when he walks in the cool of the day in the garden of his church with so many of his children not even aware of his presence, let alone wanting to walk alongside him, is a real concern to my heart. And I want it to be a concern for yours too. This is For the Love of Truth. Join me in the study in Jesus' name.